who was turned into a crow. Unwilling to accept his fate, he controlled the changes of one major era after another for thousands of years, then took back his body and began to fight to the end of the world. Billions of years ago, Lichia planted a green bamboo. 8 million years ago, Lichia raised a carp. 5 million years ago, Lichia adopted a little girl. Today, when Lichia woke up, the green bamboo became a god, the carp turned into a golden dragon, and the little girl became the empress of the 9 realms. This is a story of development, the story of an immortal human boy who became a demon god, a fairy beast, and an empress. I am called Dao Huai, for that is my given name. My title is also Dao Huai, meaning saber heart. It means that I will always carry the blade. My parents gave me this name because I was born embracing a divine saber. I trained with the blade at 1 year old and had some accomplishments at 8. I began to test my Dao at 15 and was able to become a god at 30. Despite that, I was already referred to as the saber god when I was 10. I didn't truly become one, of course, till I was 30. In this world, people have always claimed to be saber god, but in my eyes, they were all just kids playing with their toy sabers. The saber is my weapon as well as my best friend. Most importantly, it is my life. Even though I was more than 300 years old after becoming immortal emperor, but this was not my proudest achievement compared to becoming the saber god. It was my lifelong pursuit. Immortal emperor was only something I obtained after entering the Dao with my saber. The world says that an immortal emperor was the apex of the grand Dao, but in my eyes, the Dao of the saber is limitless. It has its own life, prettier than any beauties in this world. Even though I was also known as the wife of the most beautiful woman in the 9 worlds, I am still not as pretty as the blade in my hand. In my life, if I could solve something with one slash, a second one would never need to come out. But I don't know why the inhabitants of this world only remember me as an immortal emperor but not my invincible saber Dao. Perhaps it is because I came from the 1000 Emperor's Gate as its second emperor. People recorded my royal achievement but not my unstoppable Dao. I am immortal Emperor Dao Huai, born with the blade. With it in my hands, I have nothing to fear in this world. I would even fight against the venerable immortal emperor How High as long as my blade is by my side. Oh, but my blade was taken away by my wife tonight. This is why I'm here chatting with everyone. Oh, I also forgot something important. This immortal emperor, no, this saber god is the second prettiest beauty in the 9 worlds, but the truth is that I still think I'm prettier than my number 1 wife. Har har, I am just kidding. How could a pretty and gifted female immortal emperor like me have a wife? But I do have one bastard instead. Yes, it is that bastard who is always hiding. One day, I will deal with him. The moon is quite round tonight. I wonder if that bastard is pretending to be a little girl again. A little swindling girl who says, hey, you and I are connected by fate. Emperor's Domination Side Story 2. Emperor Side Story 2. The pitilessly vulgar immortal Emperor Fei Yang. Prime Ominous Grave. Divine Dragon Mountain. This was a place full of destiny stones. They were extremely precious and highly sought after by countless geniuses and experts. At the peak of this mountain was a particular, immortal stone. It was really the king of destiny stones, the natural-born ancestor of its kind. There was not a second destiny stone comparable to it in this world, because this was one of the earliest metals since the inception of the universe. Many wise sages and prodigies have vied for it to no avail. 1. During the beginning of the desolate era, a man drifted closer while shouldering both a bronze sword and a heaven on his back. Primordial chaos and the early laws floated around him. He was the rising sun at the start of this world, the bringer of an entirely new age. This was immortal Emperor Jiyu Chun, the first emperor of the 9 worlds, the person who started the heavens will epoch. He walked to the summit the divine dragon mountain and gazed at the primal metal. He became quite happy and sat down to gently pat it. His words were the eternal universal laws. Fellow Daoist, will you follow me? The primal stone was quiet and didn't make a sound. The emperor did not force it after seeing the lack of response. He said, very well, you and I are not meant to be. Keep on waiting for the fateful person then. With that, he stepped into the sky and disappeared towards the horizon. The 100 races began to rise during the early desolate era, with one emperor appearing after another. In this generation, immortal Emperor Fei has shouldered the heavens will to ascend to the throne. Today, he visited the divine dragon mountain. His arrival was accompanied by the immortals and goddesses. Auspicious images emerged in the sky with peaceful laws. This was a prosperous era. He looked at the primal stone before shaking it with his hand. He wanted to forcefully take it away, but despite the fact that he could shake the 9 worlds, he was unable to take this stone away. He ceased his effort and said, the price for a forceful taking is too large. The gains do not make up for the losses. With that, he crossed the myriad realms with the Grand Dao without any regrets. The goddesses followed him as well. 2. Nearing the end of the desolate era with myriad laws circulating, immortal Emperor Fei Yarn carried the heavens will. The 9 worlds trembled in fear. Even the burial grounds and ancestral earths got a headache because of him. Today, the emperor flew to the divine dragon mountain, unaccompanied by laws or imperial auras. The leisure and carefree emperor wore a hemp garment with a smile on both his face and in his eyes. He sat down next to the primal ore and gently rubbed as if he was touching a lover. He smiled happily to say, baby, my baby, how about going with me? Come with your young master. If you are boy, then I will give you nice clothes and good food. If you are girl, this young master's technique is number 1 and you will die from the pleasure. The emperor didn't hold back with his teasing. If he wasn't unbeatable in this world, no one would believe that he was actually an immortal emperor. There was no reaction from the primal stone after a while either. The emperor didn't become angry. He touched the stone again with both hands like a scoundrel while chortling, "My baby, if I become your master, you will have endless benefits. I, Fei Yang, am the number one *** in the 9 worlds, gifted in both literature and martial arts. With my sky-high armament, I can fight against the myriad tribes and sects. If I take it off, I can deal with 6,000 goddesses. What do you think?" 3. There was still no reaction from the stone. "If you won't follow me, then I will have to punish you." He smiled and took out a divine brush. He refined the laws and polished the Tao. His stroke encompassed the yin and yang as well as the 6 Tao and the reincarnation cycle. In the blink of an eye, he drew an ugly girl on top of the primal orb before laughing and being quite pleased with himself. He then put away his brush and slowly walked away. After he left, whenever the full moon came, an ugly girl would appear from the stone and kissed it while whispering coquettishly, "I'll always think of you. Come with me, love." It wasn't until the end of Immortal Emperor Fei Yang's generation did the seal with the ugly girl left by him on the primal or slowly dissipated away. Emperor's era. Immortal Emperor How Hai arrived. He stepped forward while being protected by the deities. The 9 worlds were opened with heavenly images. True dragons and immortal phoenixes were present, painting quite a majestic scene. 4. The emperor looked at the stone and said, "Throughout my whole life, I believe that I can catch up to Jiaoheng and Fei. It seems that I still have a long way to go. What a supreme immortal stone. Unfortunately, I can't seize it." Having said that, he then left. Emperor's era. The human race was quite prosperous during this time. The moment Emperor Hong Qian came out, the myriad worlds turned dark and the heaven became suppressed. She traveled through the 9 worlds and the myriad realms. As she walked in these lands, she remembered the past and reflected on old errors. This was not her first time to divine Dragon Mountain. Before, a dark crow has led her to this place to pick a destiny stone. Alas, she was alone today. As she looked at the primal stone, his voice echoed in her head, "This immortal stone right here. Wait until you become immortal emperor, then you can probably take it away. It is simply unique, not weakened by the 10th world. With it in your possession, you will be a tiger with wings up there in the future." The voice seemed so close, yet she was by her lonesome. After gazing at the stone for a long time, she said softly, "Eventually, we can meet again in the 10th world. Only he in this world will be able to bring you there." With that, she left quietly with a sad expression. As time passed, one generation of immortal emperor came after another, but the primal or still towered on top of the divine Dragon Mountain just like before. Emperor's Domination Chapter 3. Chapter 3, Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect. 1. 3 days later, after honoring the ancestors, you will formally become the prime disciple of our sect. The first elder, while very discontent, still managed to grunt out a response. Li Jie was still sitting casually, without a trace of surprise. He only chuckled out loud. "Me becoming the prime disciple should warrant a weapon or two for my personal safety, right?" Seeing his comfortable state under heavy pressure, all of the 6 elders were surprised. In the end, the boy was only 13 years old, but his calm demeanor resembled a tyrant that dominated one sphere, having everything under his control. How could a mortal like him have such a courageous spirit? The first elder glanced at Li Jie, shook his head and told him, "Although we accepted you as the prime disciple, we can only give you a normal weapon. If you desire a formidable treasure or an immortal emperor merit lore, you would have to contribute enough merits to the sect." Li Jie smirked. His goal was certainly not an immortal emperor merit lore or a peerless technique. His true aim was the black wooden stick lying on the pedestal. Averting his gaze to the stick, Li Jie continued, "Fine, I want that wooden stick. That wooden stick." The 6 elders' bodies staggered in surprise. The stick was only used for gathering the ashes after a ceremonial burning to honor the ancestors. It had always been there and no one had any interest in it. The elders thought Li Jie would ask for treasures using his new status, but he simply wanted a wooden stick. This request was outside of their expectation. Li Jie said with ease, "Since I am the prime disciple, my position is worthy of respect. The stick belongs to the Grand Chamber, and this is the ancestral Grand Chamber of all of the sect. Its symbolism represents the power of the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect, so it is worthy relative to my current position as the prime disciple." After hearing Li Jie's continuous logic, the 6 elders looked around themselves with their eyes wide open. They thought to themselves, "This idiotic brat and that goddamn playboy Sengui definitely belong together. Just like how an ox seeks another ox, a horse would find another horse. 1. So be it, we shall bestow this stick upon you." The first elder was happy to give this worthless stick to Li Jie if it meant that he doesn't have to hear his incessant blabbering anymore. To him, this thing was only a regular wooden stick to move the ashes. Might as well give it to Li Jie so he didn't have to listen on to his rambling. Many thanks to the honorable elders. Li Jie was eagerly waiting for those words. Before his words finished coming out of his mouth, his hands were already holding the stick. This action in the eyes of the 6 elders was seen as being very naive. "Wyron, take him to his resting quarter." Finally, an elder became impatient and told a nearby disciple to send Li Jie away. Today's events had greatly stressed the 6 elders, a wastrel becoming the prime disciple of the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect. Even if the sect had long gone past its glory days, it was not destitute enough to accept a waste of a human being as the prime disciple. Led by the disciple, Lichia approached a solitary single peak. It was not small. On top of it laid a small villa the size of 36,000 square meters. The villa had been abandoned for a long time, surrounded by weeds and wild plants. Although it is far away from everything, it is still a part of the cleansing incense ancient sect. Opening the door, the disciple immediately said, Junior no, senior disciple, this place will be your home from now on. He only spoke 2 words, but quickly realized his mistake. Based on the time Lichia joined the sect, Lichia was his junior disciple. However, because he was the prime disciple, anyone within the 3rd generation, no matter how young or old, would have to call him senior disciple. Lichia glanced at this wily disciple, and looked around then nodded his head. This peak far away from everything is a good place. Plus it is very fitting with its name, Lonely Peak. The disciple smilingly said. He peeked at Lichia a few times, then finally spoke. You will be the master of this peak in the future. The truth was, according to the rules of the sect, the prime disciple has the right to live in a peak closest to the center. The sect owned many peaks, and the prime disciple could choose any peak for himself, but most of the main peaks of the sect were occupied. Moreover, all 6 elders were unhappy with Lichia. Thus, he was exiled to this faraway place away from any main peaks. The main peaks located near the center contained thicker world essence than the collateral mountains and inferior peaks. This place will be just fine, Lichia naturally proclaimed. He was not a petty man regarding such trivial matters. I have brought all the daily necessities to senior disciple earlier. This junior disciple thoroughly handled matters with ease and experience. After taking care of all the items needed for daily activities, he politely said, if you need anything else, just come to the outer area to find me. What is your name? Before the disciple departed, Lichia casually asked. The disciple was surprised by the sudden question. He did not think highly of Lichia. His talents were lacking to the point that he would not be accepted as a regular disciple here. In the chamber earlier, the actions of Lichia caused others to feel that he was stupid, but the current Lichia who was calm and natural made this disciple feel perplexed inside, and didn't know whether Lichia was crazy or thought about everything beforehand. Senior disciple, this junior disciple's name is Nan Huiran. I am a caretaker of the outer court. This disciple quickly regained his wit, and answered Lichia. My name is Lichia. Lichia gently nodded. In the last million years, the ones who knew his true origin and name could be counted on the fingers of one's hands. After Nan Huiran's departure, Lichia did not sit idly by. He began to clean up the yard and tidied up the whole mountain. After completing the task to an acceptable standard, the deserted mountain resembled more of a home. Lichia did everything in a systematic and neat manner, slow but steady. If any accidental bypassers were to witness his cleaning actions, they would not believe that he was only 13 years old. After the tedious labor, the sky slowly darkened. Lichia felt tired and hungry. He slowly sat down in front of the villa. Taking in a deep breath, he took out the wooden stick that people used to move the ashes that are now placed by his waist and carefully observed it. His memories slowly came back to him, causing him to have a bitter smile. The world believed that if an immortal emperor succeeded in carrying the heavens they will truly become immortal. However, if that was the case, where were Immortal Emperor Minute Ren, Immortal Emperor Tonari, and all the peerless cultivators from each era? Where was their end? Lichia slowly regained his composure. He removed the dust and ash from the stick. The stick eventually revealed its real form. This was a stick spanning 1 meter. After being doused in fire for thousands of years, it still retained its original form without faults. In the eyes of other people, however, this was only a regular wooden stick without any magical elements. Lichia whispered as he gently wiped the wooden stick. Serpent punishing stick. With this wooden stick in his hand, his memories caused an inexplicable emotion. That day, when Minute Ren was without the heavens Lichia, as the master of this future immortal emperor, had taught a group of children that would be the loyal support for Minute Ren. Since he wanted to groom them well, he specifically took the serpent punishing stick from the demon forest. Those teenagers that would stomp the 9 worlds under their feet were all victims of this stick. After concluding their training, he left the stick there in the cleansing incense ancient sect, and there it has remained until now. Gripping the stick tightly, Lichia immersed himself even deeper within his memories. Escaping the immortal demon grotto was successful, and he finally regained his body and soul from the control of the Dark Crow. But time was not merciful. Everyone who used to be his friends and families, such as the alchemy god, Immortal Emperor Xueshi, Immortal Emperor Minute Ren, even the illustrious Black Dragon King that survived 3 eras, have all left this world. At the beginning of the desolate era, he was only a young shepherd. In order to find a lost sheep, he went into the grotto and became imprisoned by the immortal demon grotto. He was forced to follow the trajectory envisioned by his master in his crow body from era to era. At that moment, Lichia was very scared. Unable to resist, he flew without rest across the forbidden burials, traveling across the 9 lands, across the 9 worlds, and in the end, he still had no choice but to return to the immortal demon grotto, too. However, because of this, he had experienced the countless dangers and mysteries of the world. He had trodden through lands that even an unbeatable virtuous paragon would stray from. His willpower, basked by hardships throughout the eras, became unshakable. From then on, he was unwilling to become an immortal slave to the immortal demon grotto. He formulated a grand plan in order to cut cut off all the immortal spirit seals and formations within his soul. In order to escape the Dark Crow, for his own freedom and to regain his body, he continuously led all the geniuses on the road of cultivation. The best of these young ones were able to fight on the peerless road, under the sky, to obtain the heaven's will. But today, when Lichia had returned to his old body and became a human again, all of his friends have soon left him. Taking his last, deep breath to forget his pain, he has once again strengthened his resolve to destroy all obstacles and penetrate the souls of those in the immortal demon grotto. Emperor's Domination Side Story 4. Side History 4. Mysterious Emperor. Departure. Brightness blossomed from the horizon. The night rain has stopped to usher in a fresh morning. Yi Yunju woke up from a restless night. After washing his face, it was time to go out and find something to eat. Yunju, Yunju, a loud voice interrupted him. It carried a youthful hint still. A young man rushed in from the outside. Even though they seemed to be close in age, this youth was much more muscular and taller than usual. He looked very strong already. Little Chi. Yunju smiled with great excitement after seeing this youth. Wu Chi was a childhood friend. The two grew up together, so their friendship was great. Despite not being blood-related, they were even closer than real brothers. Yo, I brought you some food. Wu Chi quickly took out some steaming buns from his robe and handed them over to Yunju. Yuzhuan felt warm inside after accepting the hot buns. Wu Chi has always brought him food. Well, not just him. Many seniors in the village have always been nice to him. The two of them stood by the door and ate their hot buns one by one, but Wu Chi seemed a bit distracted. What's wrong? Yunju was a discerning person and he knew that something was up after seeing Wu Chi's demeanor. Wu Chi took another bite and replied with an unwilling expression, I want to leave with my master to a very faraway place. I don't know when we will return. For Wu Chi, it was not only being away from his playmate but also from the village he grew up in as well as his parents. Yunju looked up and saw a daoist standing in the distance. He had a transcending style with sleeves fluttering in the wind just like an immortal. He has seen this daoist called the Unwavering Ancient Saint. He was an immortal who came from a distant land. It was told that his sect was incredible. Yunju didn't want Wu Chi to leave either, but he still smiled while sincerely feeling happy for his friend. He said, come back often after you finish cultivating. This is a rare chance, so you have to do your best to become an amazing immortal. When you ride the clouds back here, you have to bring me to the sky to see other immortals as well. Yes, I will. Yunju's words dispersed some of Wu Chi's unwillingness. He scratched his head and said, well, really, it would be so nice if you can come train with me so that we can both become immortals together. But, my master said your talents aren't enough, but I feel that you are much smarter than me. Like you read so fast while I have to spend half of a day to finish. Wu Chi's family was one of the best in the village, so his parents were able to send him to school. Yi Yunju on the other hand was too poor to do so and could only secretly watch outside of the window. The teacher didn't chase him away either, so he still learned a lot of things. Well, cultivation doesn't rely on reading. You are taller than me and stronger too, so you will definitely be amazing after some cultivation. Yunju smiled. You must come back and make the village proud. I'll be waiting. In fact, after meeting the Unwavering Ancient Saint, Wu Chi begged his master to take Yunju as a disciple as well. Alas, Unwavering found Yunju's talents to be lacking and refused his disciples' beseech. Wu Chi wanted to talk more, but he was too young to know how to express himself and alleviate the bitter feeling in his heart. They grew up together and aspired to become immortals that could soar in the sky. This was a pact between them, but now, he was being taken away by his master to a distant place while Yunju had to stay back in the village. Wait a bit. Wu Chi told Yunju and ran towards Unwavering. The two of them talked and Yunju was too far away to hear them. After a while, Wu Chi came back and handed an emblem to Yunju and said, my master said that there is an immortal gate not far from us, Southern Creek School. They are actually recruiting right now, so you can go take a look. Take my master's token and they will definitely take you in as a disciple. Yunju accepted it and took a look. This was a badge with the word, Unwavering, carved on it. He felt warm and emotional afterward and didn't know what to say. I will definitely go. Just wait, after we become cultivators, we will fly across the 9 continents and 4 oceans together. Yunju felt his nose burning up as he was holding his tears in. Yes, we will definitely journey through the lands together, Wu Chi said with great excitement. The two were so young yet their aspiration was already so magnificent. Emperor's Domination Side Story 5. Side Story 5. An Eve's Tile. Brother, I must go now. Wu Chi solemnly aid. Yi Yunju gave him a tight hug in response. Go, after you are done learning, we'll journey to see the world together. Yes, Wu Chi resoundingly agreed with a loud laughter, true to his honest temperament. Wu Chi turned away in order to leave, but he immediately turned back and slipped a few silver coins and a jade medallion to Yunju. Travel expenses for your trip. No, I can't take this dash. Yunju was startled. The coins were one thing, but this medallion was a token of good luck that Wu Chi kept with him since youth. It was very important to him. Yunju quickly put the coins and medallion back to Wu Chi's hand, but Wu Chi immediately grabbed his hand and glared his eyes. You and me, we don't need to be like this. Keep it as a memento, but if you feel bad, give me something back too. Yunju scratched his head and helplessly said, I can't be any poorer. There's nothing valuable here, so what can I give you as a memento? Yunju couldn't come up with something suitable affordable to give Wu Qi. He only had 3 to 5 pieces of clothing that were presentable. Other items were completely worthless. At this time, Wu Qi jumped up and took an eaves tile from Yunzhou's roof and smiled. Then give me this roof tile as a memento. Wait, this broken tile is worthless. Yunzhou smiled wryly. He knew that Wu Qi was doing this for his sake. You can't say that. Wu Qi replied seriously. Your house leaks water all the time, so this single tile can shield you from wind and rain. Think about it. Just how important is this tile to you and your house? So when you give me it, just remember how precious and valuable it is as a treasure. Wu Qi's exaggeration left Yunzhou feeling warm, with his eyes becoming moist. He held Wu Qi's wrists tightly and said, when you look at this tile later, it is the same as seeing me. 1. This common Chinese expression can be weird if translated literally like this, but I think the point comes across just fine. A modification could have been, think of me when you look at this tile. Of course. Wu Qi smiled and gave Li Qi a hug. Goodbye, brother. With that, he left with his master. 2. Har har, this isn't a mistake by me. The author typed Li Qi instead of Yi Yunzhou in this sentence. Yunzhou waved goodbye towards that direction and didn't look away until they have disappeared completely. He stood there in a daze for a while. When you look at this tile later, it is the same as seeing me. This was spoken from his heart earlier. Such simple words carried an incredible prestige later on. When he swept through the 9 heavens and 10 earth to become the master of the 9 worlds, seeing this tile piece was the same as seeing an immortal emperor. It contained a boundless imperial aura. After a long time, he calmed down and looked at the badge given to him by Unwavering. He then glanced at the horizon and took a deep breath. Yes, he must go to the Southern Creek School to learn. He must gain the ability to devour rivers and spew out mists, the capability to soar to the sky. Only with that would he be able to roam freely like an immortal in order to see just how vast the world was. His heart was determined to find a teacher in order to learn. Even though he didn't know what cultivation and cultivators were, but he had a strong desire to see the outside world. A seed of doubt sprouted in his heart. After confirming his thoughts, he immediately went into the room to pack up. The truth was that he didn't have to clean up too much, only his few articles of clothing. Of course, there was his pouch of dried rations as well. He firmly tied it to his waist. It was all the food he had for the journey, so he definitely couldn't afford to lose it. After this preparation, he was getting to leave. However, he thought of the crow that has been staying in his bedroom and wanted to say goodbye. Alas, it was nowhere to be found when he came inside. Yunzhou smiled wryly. How could a crow say goodbye to a person like him? He shook his head and discarded the silly thoughts and left the small village to begin his journey. Not long after his departure, a little sound came about as a crow landed on his shoulder. It had a nonchalant appearance and immediately buried its head into its feathered wings. Yunzhou was pleasantly surprised to see the crow. He said, "It's you. I thought you have went away already. Where do you want to go?" "I am on my way to study the art at the Southern Creek School." In a distant mountain, a woman has been watching Yi Yunzhou the whole time during his trip. She wore a white dress decorated with a phoenix embroidery. Her features were kingdom-toppling, with a very beautiful maid serving by her side. This peerless beauty has been watching him the whole time, carefully observing all of his actions. Emperor's Domination Side Story 6. Side Story 6. Daily Life of Immortal Emperor Jiaoheng. Chef Bao was the most famous cook in the 9 worlds. His cooking skills were considered the finest, so even god kings cordially called him Old Bao. For Chef Bao, the thing that he was most proud of was not his peerless cooking skills. Even though his steamed phoenix liver, broiled dragon claw, and seasoned tiger eyes were his specialties and renowned in the 9 worlds, they were still not his greatest pride. His proudest achievement was to cook for immortal Emperor Jiaoheng. This emperor shocked the entire 9 worlds. He was unbeaten throughout his life before becoming emperor, completely unparalleled in all the ages. Chef Bao was ready for old age. When he would tell his glorious tales to his grandchildren, of course cooking for the emperor wouldn't be left out. He woke up very early today and prepared the emperor's favorite soup. It consisted of 9 Saints Spring, White Mist and Snow Dew, and 7 Stars Immortal Prawn. He himself was a god king, so it was no problem for him to reach the highest peak or dive deep into the ocean. Before the emperor has woken up, he has already traveled through the world in order to prepare this morning soup for him. When the sun rose, the broth was ready. He looked at the steaming soup with great satisfaction and could already imagine the emperor happily eating his favorite soup. As he was lost in his fantasy, an imperial aura surged. Even a god king like him would immediately kneel. "Your Majesty," Chef Bao respectfully greeted on the ground. There was no need for him to see who he was. In this world, only immortal Emperor Jiaoheng had this aura. A man came forward with the sun and moon circling around him along with the myriad laws. He had a natural temperament and complete freedom. A single gesture of his could cause all the existences in this world to sway. All existed to worship him. Even though his divine and imperial aura were hidden, everyone would be willing to submit to him without exception. Immortal Emperor Jiaoheng, completely unmatched in this world. In the countless eras, he alone was unbeatable. "Old Bao, let's have a small breakfast today." The emperor casually handed Chef Bao a box with a beaming and unrestrained smile. Chef Bao opened the box and saw an immortal liver within. An immortal aura emerged with the hymns of the phoenix right away. "Shining Bird's immortal liver." Old Bao was startled to see this ingredient. "I wanted to enlighten it, but unfortunately, the feathery animal didn't want to listen and so I had no choice but to make it into a snack. The emperor smiled. The fiend god, Shining Bird, Chef Bao was still in a daze. God fiend Shining Bird was known as the strongest devil king in the 9 worlds. He had half the bloodline of a phoenix. This was an existence who withstood a heavenly tribulation for 3 years, then came back to life with the phoenix rebirth. It swept through the 9 worlds without facing resistance, but now, immortal Emperor Jiaoheng killed it and took its liver to be his wine snack. The emperor stepped into the palace and took out his old scroll, then began reading its sacred text. The sun shined brightly outside of the window. However, with a single glance of the emperor's pupils, the sun hanging high became very gentle with its rays falling on his body. It was the utmost comfort and leisure period. Everything in this world was in tune with his personal rhythm. A moment later, Chef Bao brought up the boiled liver and matched it with the right kind of broth. This was the emperor's breakfast. The emperor tried them and nodded with a smile. Old Bao, your broth is simmered to the point of perfection. I must taste it every day. Old Bao retired from the hall happily after hearing the praise. He would only cook in this life for the emperor. Even if other gods in this world wanted a taste, they would have to ask other chefs instead. As the emperor was reading, he would laugh at the interesting parts. When he smiled, the world became splendid with the sky clearing up. An immortal aura would engulf the 9 worlds. Young noble, an old servant stepped forward during the emperor's reading hours. This old servant has always followed the emperor with absolute loyalty. He was responsible for the emperor's daily life and diet. What is it, Uncle Zhang? The only person addressed with this honorific and warm attitude from the emperor was this old servant alone in this world. Young noble, Fairy Yi wishes to see you and enjoy the apricots on the 9 immortals peak together. The old servant explained. Fairy Yi was the #1 beauty of the 9 worlds. Her origin was exceptional. Her features were impeccable. Her talents were peerless with exceedingly high cultivation. It was hard to find someone comparable to her. She once competed against the emperor for the heavens will. After losing to him, what she gained was love. Tell the fairy to go back. I wish to comprehend the Tao today. The emperor was still smiling freely and answered with a casual response. Young noble, you do that every day. The old servant angrily said. You are already invincible in this world. It is time to rest now. Since you are in charge of the 9 worlds now, it is time to pick an imperial queen. Only this old man would dare to speak to the emperor in this manner. He was worried about his young noble's marriage. The emperor answered with a smile. A man's ambition runs far to the 4 seas. No need to be in a hurry. Young noble, fine if you don't want to pick a queen just yet, but you should think about passing on your bloodline to extend your lineage forever. The old servant sincerely advised. In this world, so many goddesses and fairies want to earn your favor, but none of them can enter your eyes. In the present, only a supreme character like Fairy Yi can have a nice conversation with you, so I hope that you will marry her soon and leave behind an heir for their clan. Children and descendants are mostly unfilial. Why should I, Jiaoheng, need them to prolong my legacy? For generations after, my name will still echo across the 9 worlds like before. The emperor smiled. Go, tell the fairy that I'll view the apricots with her later. After hearing this, the old man couldn't do anything else and had to take his leave. Emperor's Domination Side Story 7, Immortal Emperor Jiaoheng versus the Burial Ground. The majestic 9 immortals peak towered into the sky, looking like a path meant for immortals. Rumor has it that immortals have indeed come out of this place. However, the most famous thing about this place wasn't the immortals but rather its unique plum blossoms. When the flowers bloomed, transcending mists would immerse along with a sweet and comfortable fragrance. The night only accentuated the peak's beauty and peacefulness, the same for the gorgeous trees. Alas, they were bested by a visitor today, Fairy Yi. Her delicate figure and godlike features intoxicated men and made women go crazy. She was the fairest in the 9 worlds and a brilliant genius too. She had killed contenders before while weaponless. 1. The world believed that she was a prime candidate for the throne. Unfortunately, immortal Emperor Jiaoheng appeared out of nowhere and swept through his opponents. It took one whole night and a fairy also lost. Of course, she was completely convinced of his power and eventually fell in love with this peerless man. She had no lack of suitors due to her beauty and talents. Alas, these excellent prodigies couldn't win her grace. Only the great emperor. Her hair draping down past her shoulders fluttered as she stood beneath a plum blossom tree. It was as if she was riding the wind and people could only look up at her. She was waiting for the emperor because he promised to enjoy the flowers with her tonight. She knew that he was a man of his words. Sure enough, he finally arrived by riding the moon in a carefree and leisurely manner. He didn't emit an impressive imperial aura at all. Plus, he didn't need these auras to be impressive. His presence made the world silent. Peace returned to the myriad realms in order to please him. Your Majesty. She bowed and revealed a bright smile, one beautiful enough to sway their heart. Sorry for their wait. The emperor smiled back while carefully admiring her beauty. The fairest of the 9 worlds was worthy of his attention. I can wait however long just to enjoy the blossoms with you, Your Majesty. She showed no sign of bashfulness and didn't try to hide the love evident in her autumn eyes. The blossoms here deserve a trip. The emperor smiled and raised his hand. She held it and leaned her forehead on his shoulder, looking like a cute little bird. He was the only one who could see this sweet and feminine side of her. The two of them strolled through this forest. The falling petals had a transcending presence to them. This made the peak look like a paradise for immortals. The two eventually picked a tree and sat down below together. to gaze at the moon. She found leaning on his shoulder to be very enjoyable. She treasured every second she could spend with him. He turned and smiled, then couldn't help himself from gently stroking her soft hair. "Your Majesty, you are invincible now. What other pursuits do you have?" She eventually broke the silence. "I'm the strongest right now, but there are plenty of overlords above the 9 heavens. Plus, there is no end in the search for the Tao." He smiled. "You wish to ascend?" She asked. "Yes. I shall ascend and sweep through the gods in the 13 continents." He nodded. "I'm sure you'll be able to do it." She had absolute confidence in him, thinking that he would always be unbeatable. "Yijishan, let's go back," he said gently, a very rare tone for him. "Your Majesty, come to my abode, I'll serve you." She looked at him with a bashful expression, a striking contrast to her bold request. "I'll do so another day, but recently, I have some questions on cultivation, so I'll be heading for the Heavenly Corpse burial ground tonight to borrow some ancient texts." He gave her a kiss and refused. "I'll be waiting." She returned the kiss fiercely and left without any hesitation, for he always followed his words. After sending her away, he smiled and took one step through the void to reach the burial ground. Boom! A supreme grand Tao crushed the world. His imperial aura demanded respect and subservience. His majestic figure made everyone in the 9 worlds drop to their knees. "His Majesty is entering the corpse ground," a kneeling spectator shouted. The Earth immortals in their all looked up to see his peerless style as he walked slowly towards the depths of the burial ground and reached for something hidden in there. Boom! Ancient corpses leaped out. Their attires dated back to a time before the desolate era. They opened their mouth and devoured the power of the sun and moon. Their eyes derived the yin and yang. Their auras swept through the 9 firmaments and made the god kings tremble. They created immortal swords with enough forces to slay everything in an unstoppable manner. Alas, the emperor's hand that was reaching forward destroyed these sword formations. It continued heading for the deepest area. Bright barriers and halos instantly emerged to form walls in order to stop this hand. They crumbled with haste and he managed to look at the treasury within. Boom! The corpses were naturally furious at this sight. They conjured up a gigantic halo of darkness to imprison the 9 worlds. The power of this burial ground was not to be trifled with. Boom! As they were on the verge of attacking him again, a drum from the depth with a melodious sound could be heard. The corpses calmed down after hearing this drumbeat and stopped any aggression. The emperor took out an ancient scroll from this treasury. He opened it and carefully read before shaking his head. "Impressive indeed, but not what I'm looking for." He then threw it back into the treasury and left, not bothering to look at the corpses above him. After he was long gone, the corpses returned to their resting places and the burial ground regained its silence. 1. Emperor Assailant, Contender, Rival. Remember these realms. Emperor's Domination Chapter 8. Published at the 29th of May 2016, 10:58 and 12 seconds PM. Chapter 8. If audio player doesn't work, press stop then play button again. Chapter 8. 9 Saint Demon Gate. 2. The battle stage consisted of huge meteoric stones. Each stone was encrypted with the words of many virtuous paragons. Mysterious and powerful energy was exerted from them continuously. It was this energy that protected the battle stage, rendering it impervious to any damage by the contestants. A battle stage of virtuous paragon ranking. Even though this was not his first time witnessing it, the battle stage still shook Nan Huai Ren's feelings with awe. Fellow Zhang was even more proud and started to brag. "This battle stage was created by our great elder. It can even stand against destructive power from multiple virtuous paragons. In the past, our cleansing incense ancient sect also had a battle stage." Nan Huai Ren couldn't help but mumble in a low volume. The truth was, the cleaning incense ancient sect also had a battle stage, but it was not of virtuous paragon ranking. Some say that it was nearly immortal emperor ranking. Additionally, it could withstand a fight between heavenly emperors as well as immortal emperors. It was found by Emperor Minute Ren in the depths of unknown space. It was unfortunate that no one knew why this battle stage was sealed completely. From then on, no one was able to enter the arena. Great for stone golems. Li Qi was there, but he missed the conversation completely. His eyes were focused on the 4 gigantic statues located at the 4 ends of the arena. Each of them towered over 100 yards. All of them have different expressions, yet they were all very realistic. Carved from the hands of a renowned expert with a blade technique that was very natural and perfect. This is the thing he wanted to see the most. After the death of 9 Saint Virtuous Paragon, he had never visited this sect. It was surprising to see the 4 statues after all these years. When Nan Huai Ren and fellow Zhang were chatting, no one noticed Li Qi. A moment later, fellow Zhang finally saw Li Qi's current action. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "What is this idiot doing?" Nan Huai Ren saw that Li Qi was trying to climb on top of the eastern statue. However, because of his weak cultivation level, he couldn't make it to the top. Right now there were many students surrounding the battle stage. They watched him struggle like a village boy that visited the capital for the first time. Laughter erupted and jeers filled the arena. Nan Huai Ren was so embarrassed that he wanted to dig a hole and hide in it forever. He could not see what was special about these 4 statues that was driving Li Qi's action. Li Qi signaled for Nan Huai Ren to come over. He cannot say no to the prime disciple, especially when the person is being singled out by an entire sect. He dejectedly walked over to Li Qi under the scrutinizing gazes of all the disciples. "This statue is too high, take me up there," Li Qi calmly commanded. "Nan Huai Ren shouted then became silent. silent. He was silently questioning whether Li Qiyi had become insane. Climbing up the statue, in front of all the 9 Saint Demon Gate disciples, was a great slap to their faces. "Are you going to take me up, or do you want to continue watching my monkey show?" Li Qiyi nonchalantly commented. It was as if all of this had nothing to do with him. Without any other options, Nanhui Ren grabbed Li Qiyi and jumped, in one swoop, to the top of the statue. Li Qiyi sat on the shoulder of the statue. He stared into the far distance leisurely and absorbed the heavens in front of his eyes. Nanhui Ren wasn't quite as thick as Li Qiyi. He immediately jumped down, then waited at the bottom of the statue. He stood there, waiting. In case something did happen, he simply couldn't just abandon his fellow disciple. Fellow Zhang, however, did not want to stand there for a second longer. He immediately left without a departing salutation. Does he think that he is a big shot, sitting on top of the statue? This country bumpkin is way too rude. Ignoring the comments spewed by the disciples of the 9 Saint Demon Gate, Li Qiyi remained sitting on the statue's shoulder. He whispered to it as if he was having a conversation with it. The crazy, nonsensical actions of Li Qiyi caused the spectators to question his, and their own, sanity. This was truly an idiot without fear. No one attempted to stop him, however. They felt that it was below them to interfere with a madman's muse. Eventually, Li Qiyi seemed to have become bored of sitting. He once again waved his hands to signal Nanhui Ren. Like a boulder that had been lifted off his shoulder, Nanhui Ren was so relieved that this madness had come to an end, and he brought Li Qiyi down to the floor. "Dear senior, the sun has set. Shall we go back and rest?" Nanhui Ren was praying with all of his heart that this prime disciple could spare him from further embarrassment. Who knew what other things he would do if the trip was to be continued? Seeing the poor facial expression of Nanhui Ren that was like a dead puppy, Li Qiyi chuckled and nodded his head in agreement. "Your mother?" A disciple couldn't help but yell out after seeing Li Qiyi's devilish grin. "Cleansing incense ancient sect is a third-rate sect. A toad wants to eat the meat of a swan. I spit. A black, dumb turtle has the nerves to court our senior." TL, I spit is an expression where the door simulates the sound of spitting without actually spitting. It is to show contempt. Seeing that someone was challenging him directly, Li Qiyi slowly turned around and said, "Court your senior. Don't think too highly of yourselves. Even if either a heavenly angel or godly fairies wanted to marry me, they would have to pray for my acceptance. Your senior, it is a long line until it is her turn. Your mother, you are tiring of living." All of the male disciples were having an uproar after hearing those shameless words. Calm down, calm down. Everyone should value peace and prosperity. The current situation chilled Nanhui Ren down to his spine. He immediately took Li Qiyi and left. He could not leave this crazy guy outside for a second longer. After reaching their guest house safely, Nanhui Ren cried, "Honorable senior, please. This isn't a place where we can say and do whatever we wish. Take a step back and appreciate the high sky and deep sea. Please keep yourself under control. Hold back." Li Qiyi nonchalantly proclaimed, "A general shall stop an incoming army. A dam will deter the incoming current." TL, this is another Chinese proverb. It tells someone to not worry, almost like Q Sarah Sarah. It sounds really good in Chinese since it only consists of 8 words, for each prose with the same tonal structure. They also rhyme as well as having the same parallel meanings for each of the words' counterparts. Nanhui Ren froze. Taking care of someone like Li Qiyi was akin to finding trouble for oneself. He was truly regretting taking this mission to go to the 9 Saint Demon Gate. After the events at the battle stage, many of the 9 Heaven Demon Gate disciples were outraged. Du Yuan Guang was one of those who truly wanted to kill Li Qiyi. He was an outer disciple, but his innate talents were above average. Thus, many referred to him as their little genius. He had only joined the sect for 5 years, but he already reached the pinnacle stage of Provisional Palace. As long as he could successfully pass this year's examination, he could become an inner disciple. Du Yuan Guang had a strong crush for Li Shuangyang. During his entrance examination to the sect, she was one of the main organizers. When he saw her for the first time, he was smitten. He also thought that she recognized his skills and talents since she accepted him. He had great confidence in his ability and wished for her to become his Dao partner. Li Qiyi being there, naturally, became a thorn in his eyes. This mortal does not know his own limits. If I don't teach him a little lesson, he would continue to think he is above the heaven and earth. Du Yuan Guang's eyes revealed his killing intent as he screamed out loud. Emperor's Domination Chapter 9. Published at the 29th of May 2016 11:03 and 43 seconds PM. Chapter 9. If audio player doesn't work, press stop then play button again. Chapter 9. Brutal. 1. The next day, Li Qiyi woke up and immediately asked if Nanhui Ren wanted to go on another sightseeing trip. He wanted to see if there was anything left from his era that were still around. Nanhui Ren did not want to go at all. It didn't matter whether Li Qiyi was crazy or stupid. His intuition told him that Li Qiyi would definitely cause trouble. Going with him was simply masochistic. Unfortunately, Li Qiyi already turned around and started to go on his trip. Nanhui Ren had no choice but to follow him. The most important task during this trip was the marriage trial. If something actually happened to Li Qiyi, he wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. However, not long after their departure, they were surrounded by Du Yuan Guang and his outer disciple friends. These disciples didn't see eye to eye with Li Qiyi. With Du Yuan Guang leading the mantle, it was a wondrous opportunity to teach this arrogant bastard a lesson. It is Brother Du, I have heard of your great reputation for a long time now. Nan Huai-ren knew that trouble was coming, but he still kept his calm and friendliness. Du Yuan Guang only gave Nan Huai-ren a short glance and said, Nan Huai-ren, you don't have any business here. Move to the side, or we'll deal with you as well. Nan Huai-ren's expression darkened, but he knew that the strong eats the weak. Thus, he bowed slightly and asked, Brother Du, what is the meaning of this? Du Yuan Guang completely ignored Nan Huai-ren this time around. He sent an icy cold glare toward Li Qi that was filled with killing intent. Li Qi, elegant and poised as always, stepped up toward Du Yuan Guang and said, a smart dog does not block the road. If you don't want to be a dog, then get out of the way. After he heard this, Nan Huai-ren knew that everything was ruined, especially when he saw the thirst for blood in Du Yuan Guang's eyes. He knew this would not end without incident. An angry disciple yelled out, do you not want to live? The cleansing incense ancient sect no longer has the qualifications to be considered an immortal emperor lineage. You dare to jump around like a clown in front of us. A mirror dares to be disrespectful? Li Qi was ready to retort, but Nan Huai-ren quickly stopped him and whispered, forget about it, senior brother. Don't worry about them. Du Yuan Guang is an outer disciple that is getting a lot of attention. He is also the last disciple of Protector Huar. If he passes the yearly examination, he would immediately become an inner disciple. Nan Huai-ren's intention was to remind Li Qi that they could not afford to antagonize someone like Du Yuan Guang. He has the support of a protector from the 9 Saint Demon Gate. A protector position in this sect has a higher standing than an elder position in the cleansing incense ancient sect. Du Yuan Guang did not make a move. He only coldly said, we, the 9 Saint Demon Gate, rule over the old Ox country. Even if you are from a small sect, you are still a guest. We would still like to treat you with the required courtesy befitting of our status. However, recently, one of my brothers has lost a treasure. This is not a common occurrence in our honorable sect. Nan Huai-ren's complexion became grey. He panicked. Brother Du, what is the meaning of your words? Du Yuan Guang glanced over to Li Qi and said, in the last 2 days, there were no other guests beside the people from your sect. Du Yuan Guang clearly implied that the thief was from the cleansing incense ancient sect. This matter did not only affect one person because it also greatly influences the reputation of an entire sect. Even someone as wily as Nan Huai-ren couldn't help but show an ugly expression. Brother Du, please watch what you say. Nan Huai-ren wanted to treat this matter diplomatically, but it now concerned the reputation of his own sect. He would not stand for such an insult. Watch what I say. Your sect is desolate and poor like a beggar. Who could guarantee that a thief has not infiltrated your sect? Your prime disciple is just a piece of trash. To say that your sect recruited thieves would not be unreasonable. Nan Huai-ren's face became red with anger. As a person who truly cared for his sect, he could not stand for this mockery. Brother Du, we want to meet with Leader Fu of your sect. No matter what happens, we demand an answer from your sect regarding this baseless accusation. Du Yuan Guang exploded in laughter for 10 seconds then confidently replied, meet Leader Fu. Nan Huai-ren, it is not like I don't want to reserve some dignity for you, but you and this trash alone do not have the qualification to invoke a meeting with Leader Fu. Our leaders are capable enough to obtain the title of named hero. It is unknown whether your elders are capable of the same task. Maybe your elders are qualified to meet with Leader Fu, but you and that trash, don't even think about it. After he finished his speech, Du Yuan Guang stared coldly at Li Qi. The other disciples clapped in agreement and started to once again taunt Li Qi with nasty words. Nan Huai-ren was shaking with rage, but Li Qi still maintained his composure and carefully retorted, whether this whole incident is your planning, the leader, or even your protector, it does not matter to me. Little Du, simply put, it is because you are smitten with your senior. I think her name is Li Shuangyang. Even though I have never seen her before, you guys are too petty. Your prime disciple, Li Shuangyang, and her engagement with me is merely a one-sided affair. Because I respect your sect's current status, I would consider having her as a maid. And as for you, Li Qi continued, you are so naive. If your goddess has such talents, she wouldn't have you in her eyes. I already don't care for her. Why would you try to compete with me for her like a fool? Get out of the way. You should find a place with a nice spot of shade and take a break to cool off your hot head. You bastard. If you want to die so much, then I'll show you to your death. Du Yuan Guang, enraged by those words, summoned his sword as well as his aura. Du Yuan Guang, if you want to fight, I will reciprocate. Having witnessed Li Qi's bravery, Nan Huai-ren, who was burning with rage, felt a lot better. However, he knew that Li Qi had never cultivated before, so he immediately stood guard in front of him. Fine, I will take care of you first, then I'll kill the bastard. Fiery anger exploded from his eyes. To him, Li Shuangyang was an untouchable goddess, yet Li Qi dared to insult her. Li Qi slowly pushed Nan Huai-ren back. He calmly said, hey Huai-ren, if someone wants to take my life, then I'll be the one to put an end to him. You should stand back and watch. Good, good, excellent. Du Yuan Guang was no longer angry but bursting out in laughter. This is the funniest thing I have ever heard. A piece of trash like you wants to kill someone who is at the provisional palace stage, like me? So be it, I will give you a chance to fight. Knowing that he was immortal, they knew he could not use any merit laws. The other disciples pitted Li Qi. Martial techniques versus merit laws. You don't even know the basics, yet your arrogance is through the sky. It is such a pity. Li Qi could not be bothered by those comments. He exclaimed, "That is fine, everyone can witness this battle." He walked toward the battle stage. "You can't." Nan Huairen was filled with fear. He grabbed Li Qi and said, "Senior, this is impossible. Du Yuan Guang has reached the pinnacle of the provisional palace stage. You cannot be his match." "It is fine. He is only provisional palace and not a royal noble. However, if a royal noble in the 9 Saint Demon Gate dares to mess with me, depending on my mood I would mince him into tiny pieces too." Li Qi smirked lightly, then pushed Nan Huairen away. Nan Huairen's head started to hurt. His first thought was that his senior had become senile. Li Qi had only joined the sect for a few days. He has not begun to practice even the most basic of cultivation techniques. He only had access to their invisible jewel blade, martial technique. A person who only practiced martial arts could not fight against a cultivator. Martial techniques, when compared to a merit lore, was like heaven and earth. Not to mention Du Yuan Guang was also an expert in the provisional palace stage. Nan Huairen regained his reasoning and he immediately went to find his master, Protector Mo. He knew, if this fight happened, only death would be the result. Emperor's Domination C2952, 10 million for clothes. The first half of the auction merely served as the appetizer. The second half commenced with its first item, a treasure robe inside a pushable cupboard spewing out auspicious energy as if it belonged to an immortal. This robe has a heaven-defying origin. Xian Xiao, that's all I need to say. The auctioneer introduced the item. Who's that? Not all have heard of this name before. True Emperor Xian Xiao, a true god versed in history, replied. Yes. The auctioneer went on. However, that's later on. When he entered immortal lineage, he was yet to be an emperor, just an unknown cultivator, a weakling from the lower realm. Impossible. Many youths found this astonishing. In their opinion, only invincible emperors or extremely powerful true gods could ascend. How could an unknown cultivator make it through? According to the legends, Xian Xiao entered the Bewilderness Palace and made it through more than 100 locations. He eventually came across a coffin with a fairy inside. The two of them then ascended to our world. That's all we have in writings. The details are fuddled. An old eternal said, "Who is this fairy then?" Many became interested in the person in the coffin. How could a normal girl or a weak cultivator easily ascend? No idea. The eternal shook his head. Everything about her is a mystery. Xian Xia might be the only one who knew she is. Rumor has it that his achievements are thanks to her, becoming perhaps the only emperor in 3 immortals that can slay a progenitor. What? The auction house exploded at this revelation. Impossible. Skepticism arose. The gap between an emperor and a progenitor should be impossible to cross. Their mightiest emperor was only an emperor. Their weakest progenitor was still a progenitor. Even the strongest 12 palace emperor might not be as strong as a myriad level progenitor. An emperor needed to surpass a trial before entering the domain of a progenitor. Thus, how could an emperor kill a progenitor? I highly doubt it. There's no way. Discussions sprung up all around. A few emperors became interested in this conversation too. They knew that they didn't have the ability to take down one. It's true. One eternal solemnly said, "It is written in history and accepted by other emperors and progenitors." The one killed was White Cloud progenitor. The crowd became silent and started glancing at each other. If this was accepted historically by the top masters, then it should be true. How did he do it? This became the next question. Some top emperors were present such as Holofrost, Supreme, and Metalkin. They knew that they would be helpless against a progenitor. That's why Xian Xiao is listed among the 5 greatest emperors. Extremely brilliant. The Eternal concluded. You are completely right, Senior. The auctioneer smiled softly. This robe was left behind by the woman and Xian Xiao. The thing itself is not a supreme treasure, but its value lies in the potential experiments and research. The starting price will start at 3 million. The buyer only needs 5 palace true stones and up. 50,000 will be the bidding increment. People began staring at the item. It felt a bit boring compared to the previous items. The reason was very simple. The jewel was shrouded in mysteries. No one knew who she was since she didn't leave a mark on the river of time. The only thing people knew about her was her connection to Xian Xiao. 3,050,000, someone finally started. 3,100,000, some were still interested in this regular robe. The bidders were just more cautious. There was a clear lack of competition. Plus, the price alone also deterred any potential buyer. Those strong enough to afford this amount felt that it wasn't worth it. 3,200,000, more and more people gave up. That girl is mysterious indeed. I don't know her background. The bull stared at the rope and said, "You don't know plenty of people." Li Jia said, "So you know who she is then?" The bull's eyes lit up. For million, finally, Tang Ben broke the slow increase. 10 million, Li Jia casually jumped in. "Brother, you got something against me?" Tang Ben asked. "No, I simply have too much money." "Of course. Feel free to continue." "Bet 100 million. Li Jia replied. No one had a thing to say. Everyone knew that Tang Ben and this ordinary-looking feller were wealthy. The latter was on another level. "Boss, you win. All yours then." Tang Ben was interesting in that he could accept defeat despite his pompous and arrogant act. 10 million going once, going twice, the auctioneer said. 3 times and no one else interjected, so Li Jia won the robe. Everyone was used to his insane style by now and didn't bother competing with him. Moreover, this robe just wasn't worth it in their mind. 5 palace true stones items were extremely precious. Most sects would consider this an exorbitant amount. Why would one spend so much to buy a robe of unknown effect? The preceding items were far more popular and sold at a high price. This made the auctioneer very excited. Her smile enchanted the crowd. Lichia had spent enough by this point to elevate his status. A worker came by to ask whether he wanted to go up, but he refused. A while later, the bull also wanted an immortal blade of grass and easily won. Don't be fooled by its appearance. The bull was extremely wealthy, far exceeding the emperors in this place. Most emperors who came in person had something they wanted in the auction. For example, Supreme True Emperor obtained a golden dragon arrow. He clearly came specifically for this item and outbid the competition. A bit later, Holofrost True Emperor won a gem with a pulsing holy light. Their competitors weren't serious and eventually gave up. They could see that the two emperors came for these items, so it was better to do them a favor.